Right, Sabey's here now from The Sun. Fascinating, isn't it? Because I mean, we've watched quite a lot of what you might call rather dull exchanges, I suppose, between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer until the last one, where it started to sort of liven up a bit. But the Trump-Biden stuff is a different gravy, isn't it?
Yeah, incredible. I mean, you look at Biden. Biden wanted to bring that debate forward. They wanted it early in the campaign to show there was a difference between him and Donald Trump. And what it's done is exposed his flaws.
Right.
The guy was rambling through several of those answers. Then they got into some discussion over golf. I mean, why are they discussing golf on a stage like that?
And when he said, I got my handicap down at 6 when I was vice president, all I thought was, well, you weren't doing much work there, because
exactly.
you handicapped down at 6, you played a lot of golf.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know presidents like to play golf, but that just seems taking it a bit too far.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do the Democrats do now? They've got 6-7 weeks until the Democrat convention. Do they find a mechanism to actually say you need to stand down? I mean, he doesn't, clearly he's not going to quit being president, but you know, does there become a point where several people come forward and they politely, you know, like the grey men's suits in this country, when they want to get rid of a prime minister, someone goes up to him in the Oval Office and just says, look, I think not just for your sake, but for the sake of America, that actually they move on and they try and find
certainly
someone else.
Certainly a lot of people concluding that he can't beat Donald Trump.
I mean, after that performance, it just puts off even the most sort of hardened or loyal. What about the waverings? You know, it'd be difficult enough to get out the base. You know, just think about those wavering supporters who are thinking about voting Democrat. They've just been turned off completely.
Yeah, absolutely right. And of course, it's going to be difficult for a new prime minister coming into to this country as well, because you know, we know that David Lammy's been making sort of overtures to the Trump camp, expecting perhaps Donald Trump to be the victor in the election in November. So, I mean, is Labour preparing for that?
Yeah, they've been preparing for a long time now. One thing to point out, that they did try and get a meeting with Biden before the election, I think, because of the way the timing worked out, that didn't quite happen. But I think one thing to look out for, whoever is Prime Minister in the second week of July, they're due to go to the NATO conference. It's the big 75th anniversary of NATO.
Right.
And all the world leaders are going to be there. You know, if it is Sir Keir Starmer, it's a great opportunity to meet everyone in one go.
Right.
And there is talk.
So you don't have to arrange sort of individual meetings.
Yeah, and it just puts you right at the heart of things. And it will also be the first moment. It could be the first moment for him to go to the Oval Office and actually speak to Biden. But that lure of talking to Biden and the US president, is it still the same after a performance like that? You know, we've been trying to, you know, the organisers have been trying to get this meeting for months and months and months. But what is the prize? The prize is speaking to someone who's been rambling on US television. So it's probably not quite the same as what it was 6 months ago, actually. No,
probably not. And 6 days to go now. I mean, a couple of things to comment on, I suppose. The England match on Sunday. If England win, they go through to the quarter-finals, which would be on the following weekend, I think. Yeah. Which would obviously mean that on election day, you know, England will be flying high, perhaps, and people will think, oh, that's good. Maybe I'll go out and maybe I'll be cheered up, and maybe I'll spend some more money. Maybe I'll, you know, vote for the Conservatives. Any chance anything like that could happen?
I think if they get through, there's that sort of feel-good factor. But I think it actually determines on what the parties do a little bit over the weekend. I think I'd expect to see Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer do a lot of stuff on media appearances and interviews on Sunday. But the campaign almost stops at 5 o'clock on Sunday, because what sort of, who wants to campaign or who wants to go to an event when England are playing? So, and then if England get through to I think that win their game, they play Friday night. So you could have a situation, if we're thinking about it in a newspaper sense, you could go into Saturday, have potentially a new prime minister and, you know, an England performance at night on Friday night. So that is going to be, you know, what a day that will be.
And today we've got news that the economy grew between January and March by 0.7%. Not a lot more than was expected, but again, a little bit of growth, I suppose.
Yeah, and Rishi Sunak at that debate was trying to get that message across, so that the economy has turned a corner. And those head-to-head debates, I think Rishi Sunak did, you know, pretty well. He's done better than in the sort of one-on-one interview style. Keir Starmer struggled in those head-to-heads. What he hasn't been able to do is close down the arguments quick enough. So every time Rishi Sunak has brought up either tax the economy or on immigration, he's kind of struggled a little bit, I feel. I think Keir
because he doesn't move as quick on his feet, I don't think.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think Keir has been better at trying to be a bit more relatable. He got a huge round of applause from the BBC audience when he said that Rishi Sunak was out of touch, and you know, is he relatable with his wealth, whether that's, you know, from his family or from his own money. So I think Keir certainly had his plus points, but I think on the big subjects, immigration and the economy, I think Rishi on those head-to-heads has come out on top.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, listen, we'll be talking about it, I'm sure, all next week, because we'll be getting down to the wire. 6 days to go, as we say. Let's get a voice note from Nick on Biden.
Hi, Mike. It's Nick from Eastbourne. The Democratic strategist you had on seemed completely delusional. She did, however, mention that she thought Joe Biden's performance was disappointing. Why not ask her, well, why was it disappointing? And then she'd have to have actually admitted all those failings that everybody saw so clearly that she seemed to ignore.
Nick saying, I mean, this was a Democratic strategist we had on earlier he said the words, she said it was a disappointing performance, and that was all she kept saying. When I said to her, well, how can you say, look at that man and think that he can run the White House for another 4 years? It seems extraordinary.
That's putting it politely. I know that the Democrats spent, from the weekend onwards, preparing for that debate. I think they went down to Camp David and... They spent, they're literally locked in the room going through it. I mean, but what preparation did they do? And how do they then go forward to the next debate? And how do they attack that?
That's it.
And there's talk of whether they have 2, 3 debates. I think at the moment they're only going to be
There's going to be
scheduled.
another one in September, but I think that's the only other one.
That's the only other one. But if you're Donald Trump, do you want to have more? I know lots of people actually shy away from having these debates because they're worried about how many mistakes they can make. But if you're Donald Trump, you want to be on the front foot and actually have as many as you can.
Absolutely right. Just one final thing on the Times front page: shoot illegal migrants, says Reform campaigner. We spoke to Isabel Oakeshott just before 9 o'clock, and she told us that Reform are now apparently looking into the fact that this guy Andrew Parker, who is a Reform UK canvasser, a volunteer, may in fact be an actor. They're not quite sure what that means, but apparently Reform are investigating what to do about that. So, I mean, if it turns out that there's some kind of, I don't know, suspicion about him, it might be an interesting development.
Yeah, and I think Reform will be very quick, or try to actually sort of muddy the waters on this as quickly as possible. But Nigel Farage himself is actually distanced himself completely from these comments, and so.
And the question for me really is, if it affects the vote, then it's a big story. But I'm not sure that it's going to.
Yeah, I mean, Nigel Farage has, he's got this massive following, and he has made this the immigration election. Yeah. Lots of people care about tackling illegal migration, and people listen to what Nigel Farage just said. Single-handedly, he's the one who his campaigning over the last 20 years got us that probably the Brexit vote in the first place.
I think I say this very often. He's the most influential politician that we've had in the past 20 years.
25 years, absolutely.
No question. And of course, many of the people who vote for Reform will look at this and say, well, this is another stitch up by the lefties. Channel 4 have obviously done this deliberately, gone to try and find trouble and found it straight away. What a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's... I don't know these individuals themselves, but I think if you put undercover cameras or footage long enough you're going to find something, aren't you? So I think that's exactly what they've done, and that they, in terms of the documentary, I haven't seen it myself, but the comments were startling and horrifying.
Oh, they're really horrible. Yeah, no question about that. But some, as Isabel said, somehow they're almost so bad that you wonder if anybody talks like that. Because I don't know anybody that actually does. Anyway, very good to see you, Ryan. Thanks very much indeed. We'll see you next week, I'm sure, when there'll be even less than 6 days to go.